Is there such a thing as too much luck? Is there such a thing as too much fun? Messing around, wondering how it's taken so long. I'm really so strong. It's not too much at all.
Welcome to Too Much with Denise Love Hewett. It's another week, another day, and I'm grateful to be here. It's gloomy in Los Angeles. How is it where you are?
Sunny on the East Coast after a
Oh,
gloomy weekend.
well, we love that for you. We love that you get this is like our 2 days a year where it's gloomy. And I will say it makes me feel like I can sleep in, like I'm allowed to sleep in. So today I am here with the fantastic Lynn Mull. Lynn is actually the reason I moved up our launch date for the podcast because she's a brilliant coach, and you'll read her bio in 1 second. But beyond that, she's also an incredible Reiki healer. And we did a session in which it became very clear I was being a little too precious about the process. And it was sort of the kick in the butt I needed to get this back. So really, this is all because of you.
And you, but thank you.
You were definitely the voice. So I'm going to read her bio so you can get to know her too, and then we will dig in. Lynn Mull is a holistic career coach, author, and facilitator dedicated to aligning clients' energy with their goals to achieve personalized success. With a background as a college athlete, she understands the importance of inner confidence over external comparisons. Having lived in San Francisco, New York City, and now back in her hometown of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, Lynn brings diverse experiences to her practice. She specializes in practical wellness, offering unique action plans that balance work and play, helping clients release the old and embrace new energy for both professional and personal growth. Lynn, I'm so happy to have you.
So happy to be here. I love the re-entry of the podcast, the new and just being back, being with you. This is so fun.
It's a whole new vibe. This go round's very different than my last go round, but it's been incredibly fun. And in a lot of ways, this podcast has restored a lot of my life force energy, just getting to talk to really incredible people who make me recommit and rebelieve in the beauty of humanity and the world, which daily feels hard right now.
It's definitely not easy, and everything feels uncertain, and at a macro level, sometimes at a micro level, and between fires and politics and measles outbreaks and global war, it's like, where do we begin? But you are bringing some action to something that we could have let spin forever, but we're here, and making that change and impacting people is what you're all about through your music and your voice. So I'm excited for you.
Thank you. I hope that's what we do. You have an interesting career journey to me, and I want to start with a little bit about your path and the shift you made a couple years ago. So if you can just take us on that.
A little journey. I wouldn't call it a hero's journey quite yet, but the the story of my career. So I started in finance. I am a firstborn Sagittarius and manifesting generator, very into people pleasing, which I basically just figured out in my 40s. But all that to be said, really focused on the ladder, the career ladder, left Division One sports, focused on getting a career outside in the real world, and never looked back. It was always, what's the next title? I was in financial services, finance. I would be nominated for different leadership awards, go to different classes where I picked up a lot of what I do now, but there was always something a little misaligned. My career in banking took me on an amazing journey to the West Coast, to New York City. I have seen the insides of some pretty great mergers and business plans, but at the end of my career on Wall Street, I was really feeling pressure of caregiving for my mother, who is a survivor of cancer, but at the time was struggling with a rare set of circumstances. I had two small children, really newly married, and was still working and traveling and trying to piece it all together. I just said to myself, I can't keep doing this. If I stay in this pattern of trying to climb a corporate ladder in finance where it's very male dominated, male energy, traveling constantly, how are my kids going to ever know me? And how am I going to know myself because I was playing in everyone else's sandbox? And
Mm.
frankly, recognizing how ill my mom was, you just saw the how short life was. So about 8 years ago, 10 years ago now, I started on the journey of getting different certifications, lifelong learner, coaching was very natural next step as I was in leadership throughout my whole career, and then have perlayed it into Reiki and these different modalities like human design and things. And Reiki has been a gift. I really started for myself, and I know we're going to get more into it, but it's been a joy to help others through that too.
And just to clarify for people that are new to the podcast and human design, which is one of my favorite methodologies, I think of it as Myers-Briggs meets astrology. It's very a complex system, takes some time to dig into, but you can get your birth chart online if you're curious. At some point, go back to episode 6 to hear from Erin Claire Jones, a friend of mine who's a human design expert on the pod, so you can learn more about it then. We won't waste everyone's time today. But thank you for sharing that. What sort of led you to the more left of center modalities as someone who was very sort of, I guess,
Yeah, I was in it. I was in the
yeah,
grid. I was in the square. And I still am. Like I still love macroeconomics and things like that. The There was a point at which after my coaching certification, I was working with clients, and a lot of the women and men that I worked with, also very type A, also very motivated, breadwinners or f- women and men who wanted to work, wanted to figure out what was next, but they were finding themselves very unsatisfied and stuck at the same time, which we've all been there. The There had to be more. And so I kept peeling the layers of what can I learn to help my clients. And on a bike ride, I was listening to a book, and at one point they described Reiki being a Japanese modality, a healing modality. I call it acupuncture without the needles, working on the chakra system. And I thought to myself, what is this? It sounds very interesting. It's not a religion. You're working with people's energy. And I'm one of those sensitive people who could go into a restaurant and walk right out and say, I can't eat here. There's a vibe. Or I can't rent this apartment, or I can't buy that house. There's a vibe. I would always notice energies, people, spaces. And so the Reiki fell into my lap out of curiosity and with an intern's mind. I know that that part of my education and background will always be with me. I was just craving learning how to help individuals more quickly solve for the stuckness. And I believe that some of these more Eastern, or as you said, left of center modalities can help people drop into themselves more. They certainly help me.
a lot of people experience the big question of there has to be more, like there has to be more. And I certainly did many times. I tried so many different careers to try to get to the heart of the thing that was going to fulfill me long term. And not everyone's on this lifelong quest to internal fulfillment. A lot of people are happy to have a job and have a paycheck. But I constantly was a seeker and just always like, there has to be something more that can fill me up. And I would have jobs that would for a short amount of time. And then I would end up becoming disenchanted with the institution or the leadership, and would just realize that long term it wasn't a fit. The universe was speaking to me along the way.
Mm.
And it took me a while to understand that a lot of my career hiccups were in service of something greater. I always read books. Like I've always been a big self-help book person. And I spent, I think,
Me
a lot of my
too.
20s reading self-help books on like my love life or whatever the hell to try to figure out what's going on. And then when I was 28, I hit a crossroads and went to therapy. And that's really when I sunk into all the modalities that I explore now. And I'm constantly trying to learn new ones because I think there's all this intelligence that we have in mind or that we're not explicitly taught, or it's hard to find unless you're already in like university studying spirituality or different different things like that. It's hard to discover. If I agree with you that all of it has helped me have a deeper understanding of myself in a way that gives me a lot more certitude about the choices that I make.
It's exactly it. It's I want to make a decision that works for me in this time frame. And that time frame might be 6 months, a year, a month. You might need to get like when in crisis, you and I were in communication during the LA fires. You're like, I need to make a decision for the next 48 hours. Then it was a week. Then it was a month. And then you started to look out through spring and summer. I think when we're in those crises moments, yes, keep it short, keep it tight. But when we want to make bigger, broader, purposeful decisions, do you really want to go to your boss or your friend? Does she really know any better? And what I found, or your parents who are so biased, or whomever in your life, when I did the same thing, I had a bad breakup that led me to therapy. And I think that cracked a little bit of it open, but I never got enough action out of therapy. And I still pop in and out of talk therapy, but I really love the action oriented way of coaching, meeting the energy movement. And I agree, some people are fine with life as is and they can float. But when you are wanting more, when you feel like you're made for more, or you want to have a huge impact, and you keep bumping into these institutions or bosses or projects that don't work, you can get angry or disenfranchised or unmotivated. And you're thinking, but what? I am so motivated. What the heck happened that all of a sudden I'm annoyed all the time? I really love this product or I love this modality. It's unfair to yourself or to people who have the ability to give so much to not be on an aligned path. And I think chipping away at that is really important for yourself, especially as we age, right? It's fun in the 20s to have the group mentality. I think of myself freshman year going to the cafeteria at school with like 15 people. And now I'd probably rather have dinner at a bar by myself than try to do that. And that's because I feel so certain in those decisions, or I feel so certain in what's next for the next year. I don't go out any more than a year now based on COVID. That was a fool's errand,
Well, the best laid plans always
right?
go awry. I have a lot of friends who have a lot of limiting beliefs that I believe hold them back in their decision making. I call my period after I shut down my startup, I call it the swamp. And also, honestly, the last couple years of it. Like it was this, I don't know how to explain. I've always been a very clear person. And that was part of a coping mechanism. My trauma coping mechanism was action and clarity. And I always was on the move. I didn't really slow down enough, but it was a lot of clarity and a lot of clear decision making around what I wanted my life to be and where I wanted to go. And my startup was the first time I was faced with a deep unknowing where it didn't matter how much I achieved or executed, it wasn't working. And it was incredibly confronting for me. I felt very helpless, felt very, very stuck. And then when we finally decided to shut it down, the grieving process of that was also something that kept me really stuck. And when I explain this to people, I'm like, there was no energy. I had nothing to give, knowing how much I had given prior. It felt like my feet were in quicksand, and it didn't really matter because I didn't have any answers. And it was really hard as someone who has spent their whole life believing I had answers.
Yeah. I understand that feeling of quicksand. Yeah, keep going.
And I have a lot of friends now who've also experienced professional heartbreaks. And we talk about this. And I think there's this idea, especially in our culture, that we have to know everything right away. Or the amount of people after I shut down my company that were like, so you had a failure. What's next? Or you need a big success now that you've had a big failure. And I was just like, whoa, whoa. Like I'm still coming to terms with the fact that I had to let this thing go. I'm not ready to talk about what's next. But the cool thing about the allowing of that process for me was that it sort of just naturally unfolded. Like life showed me what was next in a way that I don't think I've ever really allowed for because I've always been so quick to make the move. Can you talk about the space between action and allowance?
that permission to live. So as we were starting to hit record on the podcast, I pulled the and card. And the and card, I'm holding it up and we can post about this and we can tag all the 24 Oracle deck. But a lot of the work I've done is called living in the and, just as you talk about. And the ampersand, I have them all over my office. I just moved offices, so they're not up yet, but I love the ampersand. And it's this symbol of exactly what you're talking is. It's not this extreme, like I sold $1 billion company, or I hit rock bottom and I had to move out of my house. It's somewhere in between. And that's what most of life is. And when you look at an actress or someone who has the guys who started Google, they do talk about all these other steps along the way. And you notice maybe the highest Google ticker price, or maybe we talk about in the news the Oscar, but we don't talk about all the other movies these actresses have made, or we don't talk about these failures, but you have to take these little steps. And that's what living in the and is. It's the muck, it's the gray. We can't always have these huge milestone moments. We all want them, and of course they're amazing to have the awards or the what is deemed as successful. I think it would be unnatural not to crave some attachment to the title or a brand. Like some days do I wake up and think, it would be nice to work for a corporation. I don't really do that, but it was nice to be associated with a brand. And so I understand that craving of what's next, but to sit in that space and what you are describing is what's so important, is waiting for an invitation. And I do mean literal invitations, invitations to apply for a job, invitations to go to a performance, invitations for a date, whatever it may be, in a space that you're open to. But if you're not open to those invitations, if you're closed off, like you said, I wasn't ready to start something. You were really inward, you were grieving, you were going through the process. It's about letting yourself get to the place where I'm open. My heart is open, my crown, my brain, my third eye is open. I feel grounded in myself. I know what that experience meant to me. I know that we had to close my startup, but I'm ready to move on now. I've done this where you rush to the next thing, and it's often a rebound job. A lot of my clients
Yes.
have to take rebound jobs because they were in a toxic environment and they need to move on. Okay, but no, it's a rebound. Wait for the invitation for what is aligned. It can be really hard, and in a society of hustle culture and over productivity, over functioning, we're nervous to wait, but it comes. I had someone call me today out of the blue who I used to work with 10 years ago and said, my team might get laid off in the next 6 months. Can you do a workshop on living through this exact process?
I refer to those jobs that you have to take, the rebound jobs, as like jobs of breath. I have a lot of failed startup friend founders or sold a company, moving on to what's next. And I always just say, we don't need to go build the next thing. We don't have to start something. You need a job that helps you pay the bills, that helps your needs met, that's easy enough. That doesn't take from you, doesn't necessarily give to you, it pays the bills. Because once you get your head above water and your bills are paid, you can start to breathe a little bit and move out of the surviving into more of the thriving self, as my friend Tina Lifford says, and have better perspective of actually what is in alignment with yourself. Do you agree?
100%. And there feels like what you're talking about and is a lot of pressure, a pressure we put on ourselves, pressure we think others are putting on us. But what is possible when you take that job or you can have a breath? What is possible? You can have a different thought. You can have a different idea. Another collaborator could come in, another opportunity when you have time to get home at quote unquote 5 o'clock and then go out to dinner with friends and have an engaging conversation that says, hey, you know what? You should meet so and so. I think they'd be a great person for you to connect with. I know you were in the same space, or I know you both traveled to these certain places for work. But when we continue to bury ourselves in that productivity mindset, then it's hard to thrive, as you said. So giving that breath, giving your space, it's what is possible in this moment when I give myself the ability to just have the invitations, let itself sort out. The only thing I was going to say from a neuroscience perspective, that we don't talk about anymore. It takes a year and a half for our bodies, brains, neurons to go through a major change. Birth of a baby, moving houses, changing jobs. And in this 2025, we expect it to be snap your fingers, get over it. Snap your fingers, move on. And so we want
Wow.
our neurons to catch up, like give yourself that space.
That's really interesting. Really interesting. I always say my friends who have babies, I feel like they come back to our social life 3 years later, which sort of makes sense because a year and a half you're sitting with it, and then you're like, get back to a year and a half of your own scheduling in your life. And it's the same thing. I mean, it took me about 3 years to move on or get over my startup. I was paralyzed for the first year and a half. I also want to talk about energy levels and monitoring your body's energy, because this is something you obviously are intimately familiar with Reiki, but a lot of us are not in tune with our own energetic tank, what we have to give. And that was such a thing for me post startup, was knowing what a intense force of nature I was building my company and what I gave it. And after that I was like, I don't have it. I don't have what the next thing needs yet. For a long time, for the record, I thought I may never have it again. I said, that might have been it. I'll never have that much energy again. I'll never be able to give something that level of myself ever again. And now I will say, I will never work that way again.
Mm-hmm.
But the energy is slowly coming back. And I've been sort of marveling at myself the past couple months, being like, whoa, she's back. Like, it comes back. And I think that's an important thing for people to understand, because most things in life are temporary and we forget when we're in the swamp.
We forget. We forget when we're in the and that there is another day, another moment, another high, quote unquote. You can talk about a battery, you can talk about a tank, imagining yourself as your favorite cartoon character, Bugs Bunny, whoever it is. We were talking about old cartoons this weekend, but just really having this moment where am I today? So one way to consider where you are. So I do this a lot now before I go into social situations or a big meeting or a call that's really important to me, is I do a body scan. This is something you can do at a stoplight, in car pickup line, before you go to yoga, meeting, whatever you need to do. You can do it before you go to bed. You can do it in the shower, bath. You get the idea. It is portable to do an energy scan. And you just want to start with I like to start with my feet, and picture your breath in and out moving, and just focus on a part of your body. So for example, feet to knees, then knees to hips, torso, arms, and you're focused on the front part of your body. And as you're breathing, closing your eyes, not if you're at a stoplight, but noticing, do I feel tense? Do I feel tingling? No judgment, just where's my body right now? Because as the book says, the body keeps score. The body will know. And if I said to you right now, Denise, like, where do you have tension in your body? I bet you can answer. Yeah. You've got a
Right
shoulder.
here. I got a shoulder.
We have a shoulder. I have a hip right now. So people can often tell you where they have tension, but have you noticed the temperature of your body? And then I would say do the same thing. Do it for your hands, wrists, the back of your body, the back of your head, your neck. I like to do it very methodically, up, then back down. Allowing yourself to have this body scan, it's like, what is my body telling me? So a couple of clues. Heat, if you feel like a deep moving sensation of blood, it's new energy. And then you can DM me or email me, and you could say, I felt tingling and heat in my gut. And I would talk about the chakra associated with it. You can Google it. Or you can just say, you know what, I'm getting new nutrients from the food I ate today. You can really keep it simple. We maybe don't even need to go to Google. But you get the idea. You're really leaning into what feedback your body is giving. And then, so for example, let's say I have a lot of cool energy. The cool energy is old, stuck energy. So if I'm going to a party or I'm going to a social gathering and I'm not really feeling my best, I'm feeling low energy, and I think to myself, God, my gut is really feeling good. I feel very full. I feel very, very peppy in my step from my gut. So I'm going to lead socially with my gut. I'm going to make eye contact, follow my gut, and go to the person in the party that has the best, shiniest energy. Or perhaps I don't feel good and my legs hurt and they have cold energy, old stuck energy. I would say, I don't feel grounded. So I'm going to ground myself before I go to that party. And when I'm there, I'm going to make sure to sit down and not walk too much. So it's just a quick guide.
Can we clarify something? Is
Sure.
it so cool energy is different than feeling cold?
That's a great question. So, okay, so you're cold, like I just went on a walk this morning, the wind was blowing,
Yeah.
or your feet are cold because your apartment heat doesn't work, or there's a gloomy day and you're cold, your temperature is cold. It's in moments of stillness. So you put the socks on, you put the gloves on, you put the hat on, whatever you need to do, you layer up. But in a moment of focus, so let's say you are focused on your torso and you feel a cool air or a chill, like the goosebumps when you were a kid, it is your body releasing some old stuck energy or your body releasing what is no longer serving you or giving you a big clue. Being cold, temperature wise, is more of a state of being than an energy.
I feel like I understand warm energy pretty intuitively. It feels clearer to me than cool energies. That's why I was asking, because I just want to understand where to feel it in myself. Because I don't think it feels, and maybe it's not, maybe the more time I spend with it, it'll be different. It feels subtler than warm energy.
I think for you, you're in this growth, you're turned on again, like your growth volume is up. And growth, I mean, in a holistic way, not in do all the things. I think if you and I were talking 2.5 years ago, you might have felt those trickles of the company, of grieving the company, or for me, the trauma of working in a male only energetics, right? So I did have that trauma release after leaving banking. So I think of it as a chill, or sometimes, to your point, some people see it as like, I don't feel anything. Like my body feels numb, nothing, a black hole. It can feel like that swampiness that you're talking about. And I wouldn't put too much pressure on the body scan. The other component is if you want to feel your energy is rubbing your hands together and placing your hands somewhere on your body and just feeling into that breath, letting your hands open, close, maybe even letting a little space between your hands and having this, let me show up the way I need to this event, to this meeting, to this client. Let me show up to lead my team. It can take 2 to 3 minutes, 2 to 3 seconds. It doesn't have to take 20 minutes of serious meditation. And the more you do the body scan, then the more you notice. For me, I'm a night person, so I love to do this at night. But there are a lot of morning larks, as my friend calls them. Just get up and do the scan.
Yeah, it's an easy way to get acquainted with yourself and get in your body.
The thing that's interesting is all of my friends are into, and maybe you are too, but the Apple Watch, the Aura Ring, the Whoops,
No.
they've got 20 things on their bodies. And I'm like, don't you know if you slept well? So the body scan is like confirming what you already know about yourself. I have a headache. My brain is clogged. Keep the answer simple. I don't have any of those devices because I am that in tune where I know I've been eating poorly and I need to really dive in and give myself some nutrients, for example. I think we all want these big answers from these devices when a body scan can do the trick.
Oh, totally. I don't do any of that stuff either, just because I listened to this podcast and they were like, it doesn't really make a difference if you know or you don't know, because then you're in competition with yourself. You're putting pressure on the need to sleep well. I just create a very calm environment for myself. I have an eye mask, I have mouth tape, and I have white noise. It's definitely a lot of things to bring me to that place.
That's okay.
But Oh, it's helped a lot, especially with my schedule of DJing late and then working during the day. I've had to really figure out how to create a very strong sleep container so I get the sleep that I need. So it's a bit of a practice for me, which I've worked really hard to get to a place where I have decent sleep.
Yeah, me too. I feel good about my sleep, which I know a lot of people have a hard time with. But in general, I believe there are easy ways to connect with yourself and to allow those answers to come in. It's just like people say, I get the best ideas in the showers because there's not anything else going on. And so the body scan is like, turn the music off, don't have the TV on, don't look at a device for 30 seconds and feel your feelings, feel where you are, and then decide, do you need to put up a boundary? Do you need to talk to someone, have a conversation? It's really this idea of I am here right now. It's like that pin on the old mall maps that said I am here. That's what you're saying about your energy. And not judging yourself if you have low energy in a period of your life or in a season. It feels normal. We're coming out of East Coast winter, was pretty rough. I'm recovering from a surgery, pretty rough. I'm like, I'm not trying to write a book right now. It's not the right time. And I think I even delayed our Reiki session because I just needed another week before I could show up for you and asking for permission. Hey, my tank is quite empty. I need to reconnect before I connect with you.
Things happen at the right timing
Right.
always. And I have a really hard time with, I'm a Virgo, so I like timelines. I like getting things done. That is my south node that I'm trying to lean into my north node of Pisces and become a little bit less rigid with my timelines. But as much as I hate to admit it, the reality is it always happens at the right time. It's never on my timeline. And I feel a lot of impatience and urgency around many things, personal and professional. And your session could not have come at the more opportune time. After we did our first session, I was high on life, like euphoria. Euphoria. Like I was actually thinking about it the other day because I was like, I think I just thought every time we did that, I was just gonna feel that like high, which I needed that level of extreme euphoria to remember that that existed within me.
Mm.
And now I'm like, okay, this is normal happiness. Like that was a decibel that was unsustainable.
Well, we'll go back. We'll dip in and out. You
Yeah,
can dip in and out.
exactly. But it's not thinking that's the constant of my life was, unhinged. You're like on, it was like felt like I had just done like a drug. That's how great I felt for probably the first 3 weeks after we had our first session.
It's so cool. It was virtual Reiki, and we had done it when, frankly, it was really late at night here, and my setup was a little goofy, and we just dropped in. And my process to drop in is I'm not walking around carrying your energy, and you're not walking around getting into mine, right? I have a process of dropping in, calling in your guides, calling in my guides, and then just noticing where you're at. I think the best part of that is every session is different. So I had one client once who had lost a child. The child was 8 when she passed, or 7, and the daughter came through. So it was a lot of tears, it was a lot of grief, it was a lot of release, but it was a visitation. And I'm not a medium, but her energy was with us and releasing a lot of holding on to that grief. The next time we saw a toy soldier in her energy field, and I'll never forget it. It was like this figurine that kept bouncing around. It's not my news to share. You had a symbol come through that stayed with you. There are certain sessions
Oh, we
where,
can share it. This
yeah,
is
yeah.
where
So there was a
we're
hummingbird came through in Denise's session, and it keeps popping up, and it allows both you and I to stay
keeps
connected.
popping up. Guys, it's crazy. First of all, I see them. It's always been my symbol because I saw a medium a couple years ago and she had informed me that that was my grandfather coming to say hi to me. And I would see him here and there, and he'd also see my mom and see my sister. And since we've had reading, like done our sessions, I go outside every single time I go outside and I'm there pausing, slowing down. I see one. And what was really crazy was that in our session, my rib area was like this bright orangey red, which we both independently saw and then confirmed with each other that we had seen the same thing, which is also Lynn and I've had a lot of those things where what she is seeing is what I'm seeing, but I haven't shared it with her yet. And then afterwards she'll say something and I'm like, that's what I saw. It's very next level. But I was in my backyard And these two hummingbirds came, and my neighbor was there, and we both looked at them because it was so bizarre. But these two hummingbirds had a neon orange streak on their side. And we were both like, we have never seen that. We have never seen that. And I was like, it's my ribs. It's my ribs. And then I'm working on a new project, and I was meeting with somebody who's going to be integral to that project on Tuesday night. And we're at this bar, and this guy comes over, and he's like, I have this mezcal company. And he's like giving us the spiel, and I love artisan made anything. So he's got this cool backstory. So I'm just listening. And then all of a sudden he flips the bottle, and then he goes, and then we have this hummingbird, which is this symbol, and on this tiny heart, on this label. And I was just like, I texted Lynn and I was like, are you kidding? Are you kidding? Like, it was so insane, but it's become a symbol for me beyond my grandfather of being on the right path. And it felt very good to know that this new project, which is a creative risk and exploration of joy, felt like, okay, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be right now with this person.
If 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you would have missed those symbols. Like that same person might have been talking about his tequila and you would have been either ignored him or you never would have talked to him long enough to sit there to let the bottle be turned, right? So you're at the right time.
I would have been, he said, can I have 5 minutes of your time? 2 years ago, I'd have been like, no, we're talking. Thank you so much. And I was like, sure. Tell me about your mezcal. like totally different space of just being more curious and more in awe of what I see around me. That's actually started during the fires was a lot where a lot of this recharged or re-began. I saw one of my mentors in San Francisco who embodies joy and curiosity at a 10. And it's someone who I really admire and want to be able to channel that level of energy all the time. And so she catalyzed it, and then it just has kept going. But you're 100% right. I would have not taken the time to listen.
And so sometimes people, if you're listening and you're like, I don't ever see signs, just ask for one. So Denise is very clear on a hummingbird had a deeper meaning a long time ago, and then we've alchemized it to mean something else. I think the other component is I've added a new symbol. And as I start to change how I work and what I work on and how I write and what does it mean for maybe another deck of some sort, not just the 24 Oracle deck, I'm looking for a blue butterfly. I've never worked with a blue butterfly before. So I said, I need to make sure that this new idea I have of bringing the energy of money together with Reiki, with leadership, is that a good combination? I want to see 2 blue butterflies this weekend. I was going to the desert. I've never really seen blue butterflies in a desert before, but okay. I walked into this store and there were literally framed pictures of, I would say, 50 blue butterflies. So I'm like, okay, I'm on the right track. Thank you.
I have full body chills.
Talking about your hummingbird, my whole head was just vibrating and brought these tears to my eyes of like, here it is. It's like an invitation to go. And when I say go, I don't mean like get on the treadmill again. I mean, let's take this energy for positive. Let's take this energy and use it. Let's take it when I am maybe a little tired from a long week or a lot of podcast recording. Let's take those ideas and work with them. It's using that energy to sustain you rather than over function and overwork. But I agree. I think your sessions have allowed you to both open up, and how I operate is I always unclog the pipes. Like I don't want you carrying around some of that stuff anymore. And so when you release, just like a plumber would come through, I spend the first part of the session just getting the gunk out, that mud. You don't need to carry that with you. And it's always with us. It's part of us, but it shouldn't be the main attraction. It shouldn't be the main thing that you're leading with, because if you're in that muck and you're carrying that grief and you can't move past it, well, that's how you're showing up to that meeting, to that date, to that invitation, whatever it is. I do believe that you can move your energy without spiritually bypassing. And what I mean by that is, oh, positive thinking. Like you should just get over it. You had a good run at that startup. Think positively. Something will come along. It's like you working through it can help you get to the next thing. But I do believe we have to work through it. And I have found through my own impatience that Reiki can really move that pretty fast.
By the time you and I saw each other, I have done a lot of grief ritualing around my company and clarifying what I wanted next. And I was a little confused about how to get to where I wanted to be next. I'm not in a rush anymore. I spent so much of my 20s in a rush and just on the treadmill. I'm not there anymore. I'm not necessarily in a rush, but I have, not today, but I have fears around not meeting my own personal potential in this lifetime. Many of us feel that
Same.
are we ever going to, yeah, achieve the things we want to achieve, make the impact we want to make and see. And you've helped me have a lot of peace around trusting the process.
Well, thank you. If you look at the Oprahs of the world, they all talk about these limiting beliefs. And you asked this before. It's like there are moments where we question, is this the right path? Is this the right way? Can I accomplish this? And I would say, and you indicated it before, and I'll confirm, I've always met my goals and it's never been on my timeline. So I have one huge thing that I want to do. And I probably will, it'll end up being in my 50s, and I'm okay with that. I just have to let go and know that I'm going to use the word product, the service, the writing that I'll do in the next several years is going to be what brings that to life. A lot of people, it takes a while to get all that expertise, bundle it up, and put it back out.
That's the fallacy of our culture, is this idea that you have until you're 35, 40 to accomplish everything and then your career's over. And the more I synthesize who are the people that I really admire and the work they're putting out in the world, the majority of them, it's between 40 to 70.
Right.
It's not in that earlier, because you have to have a certain amount of life experience and processing that experience to have the wisdom to share. I just realized now I had a lot of limiting beliefs around timelines of accomplishment.
It's great to have goals, and I do believe in both. I operate in both spaces because I do want to accomplish a lot, and I like nice things, and I like to experience. I like to be able to go to the desert and have a wonderful vacation, but I also want to live in a space that's more authentic and aligned to my values, aligned to this stage of my life. It's different than when I could run on that treadmill. And how do I take all of those experiences and bring them forward in a meaningful way? There's this whole trend right now to talk to your younger self, which I find to be like, I don't really want to talk to her. But if I had to, it's all about really, really picking up, what do I need to learn in that moment? Is it a lesson? Is it tactical, like literally how to do a spreadsheet? Or is it how to interact with people? Is it a relationship I'm building that I'll use in the future? And I think that's the beauty of it, is letting that marinate in a way that can inform this bigger purpose. So whether it's Reiki or whether it's another modality, exploring ways to release some of that old self and just move closer to your future self.
We've mentioned your deck a couple of times now, and I just want to give a little more color to the audience around the deck you created.
That was truly a divine download. I'm still waiting for that second one. So we talked about, like, how did I transform my career? And I was following or learning from other people in the spiritual space, reading books by them, or they'd find people who were quoted. And there was a deck that I used from a Reiki master who I was in touch with. It's a Swedish deck, very, very, very simple. An oracle, the term essentially means wise at the end of the day, a wise person, a wise thought. And unlike tarot, there are no rules to oracle. You can have as many cards as you want. You can have as few. My deck has 31 cards and a little booklet, but there are many, many variations. Oracle is, for me, more freeing personally, because I was in a very structured work environment, very highly regulated. I was like, I don't need any more rules. So I used an Oracle deck throughout my process, throughout my coaching. I was pulling a card every day in COVID, and I was completing the artist way. If anyone's ever done that, Julie Cameron created a book where you follow these certain prompts for about 12 weeks. Well, at week 7 in the process, she says, take yourself on an overnight date alone. And I went, And I had a notebook and I had some colored markers and pens, and I planned to go to a hotel, have dinner, take a couple of walks. And I ended up writing the 24 Oracle deck. The 24 has a lot of significance to me, but essentially there are 12 full moons in a year, which we all talk about and know about, but there are also 12 new moons and how many other phases in between. And so to the point we've been talking about is you can have power at any phase in your life, whether you're waxing, you're waning, you just got laid off, you just got a killer job, you just got the project of your dream, whatever it is, leveraging the phase you're in. And the Oracle deck is really reflective and takes you into yourself. So if you don't feel comfortable doing a body scan, pull a card. And it doesn't have to be from my deck. It could be from anything that brings you joy and lightness and a little bit of a moment of clarity in a crazy day and a crazy week to anchor on into yourself and into your heart.
For people that are skeptical of the actual pull, so I have found the more that I pull, the more I trust the pulling.
Mm.
Whereas my family's not very into any of these modalities. So when I've been like, oh, let's pull cards, they are very resistant. The cards always inform the situation, in my opinion. But there's a lot of people that have distrust around how is this not random? Can you give a little like insight into the energy connection?
2 points here is when I pull a card, I will ask a question of the deck. So the deck would be turned over like you're playing cards and you're about to deal any go fish. You can deal anything, right? So you turn the cards over, you can splay them out, or you can just pull the top card. When I do that, I ask either if it's at the beginning of the month, for example, I'll say, what is my message for April, the month of April? Let's just say I couldn't decide if I wanted to be on this podcast. I would say, is this the right time to be on Denise's podcast? And I would pull a card with a very open-ended question, never a why question. So that's how I pull. And then so for the skeptics and the question about, or the idea of it, is it really randomized? I think the concept in my particular deck are wide enough that it should apply purposely to a lot of open thinking, a lot of prompts to allow you to get out of your head and maybe simplify what you're craving or what you're asking. The skeptics piece for me, as I've studied different modalities, whether it's I've had my tarot read, I've had a medium come to my retreat, I've studied various religions, although Reiki and Oracle are not considered religious, and everyone has a version of this, whether it's a book or a ritual or a lighting of a candle. It's that same idea of ritualizing a moment where you need connection to a higher power. And that's how I look at it. And there are lots and lots of the yoga sutras, for example, sort of do the same thing where they're peeling back the onion a little bit on what's going on, what's in your energy and your space, and who are you surrounded with. So they can be skeptical, and they can also pull a card and see if it applies and take what they need at that moment.
It's a tool in the toolkit, which is when we are in the swamp or stuck, sometimes it helps us see outside of ourselves in that current space.
I agree. That zoom out effect. It's like, hey, I'm so mad at my friend. I can't believe, or like I have a workshop falling apart right now. We agreed to it in January, supposed to be in April. The link's not up. Can't get a hold. Suddenly they can't. I'm being ghosted. Fine. It's a friend of mine. I've helped him out a lot. What do? I pull a card. Is this going to happen? And detaching from the workshop. But I am frustrated because I put a lot of work into that friendship and that work. It's become a work relationship, and I'm not getting the reciprocation on this particular instance. But it's going to allow me to open up that date to go work with someone else or to have something else pop up. But I was pretty upset earlier. So pulling the card was like, let's zoom out from this upset and anger and frustration and feeling taken advantage of, and let's pull the card. And it was like trust. Okay, the card was trust. All right, trust, it's going to work out the way it's supposed to.
I have unhealthy attachment, which at this point I think everyone on this podcast knows. And so when I was healing from that and working through to be a healthier, more secure person, I know a fundamental of unhealthy attachment is that I do not see people clearly. I romanticize people, I put them on a pedestal, I do not see them clearly. And so I was working really hard to actively listen when I was going on dates and see people more clearly. But on some level, I still didn't fully trust myself. So I used the cards. And I have this one deck that Anne Marie McKay made called the Magus deck. It's a great deck, very serious, like weighty deck. So when you're dealing with real life stuff, it's a really good deck to lean on. And so I would use this deck and I'd be like, going on a date with this person, or I sort of like this person, like have a crush. What do you think? And like 5 times in a row, I pulled this card, the trickster card. And the trickster card was always, there's something going on, honey, that you're not seeing. And so I'd be like, oh, fuck, pulled the trickster card. And lo and behold, like 2 weeks, a month, 3 months later, I would find out something and the trickster card was right. And so now when I don't pull the trickster card, I'm elated because I'm like, the card's always new, something that I couldn't see. And the reality is now I trust myself a lot more. I
Right.
think I see a lot more clearly than I was 5 years ago. But that transition from unhealthy to healthy is one where you're going through that liminal space. And it's a lot of steps forwards and steps backwards to finally get to a place where you're more secure attachment.
I call the multiple in a row card pull, I call it the spiritual anvil. It's like you are getting hit over the head, like pay attention.
I have 2 of those.
Yeah, it's just like, boom, pay attention. You need to understand that this is important.
Yeah, I have another one in Anne Marie's deck that I keep pulling and I keep hoping it's going to come to fruition. It hasn't come to fruition yet. It's called the Nebuchadnezzar. And Nebuchadnezzar was like an old, I don't know exactly the lineage, but basically a god or a king that built their empire very much through blood, sweat, and tears. None of it was simple. It's really, you will get there, but it's going to take almost everything out of you. And I have pulled it with her probably 5 times. I've pulled it on my own a few times. I'm always like, okay, if you see this for me, I see it for myself. But I don't know when the ship is coming to the port.
Right? The grit. You're in the grit. And that is also the moment where, like, you needed that, like you said, that trust, and you needed to hear it from someone else. And sometimes I think a lot of what I work on with people is you don't have to go to your friend or your neighbor, or you don't have to go to your brother, your mother, your sister, your cousin, your coworker. Like, just with yourself for a moment and pull a card, or sit with yourself for a moment and do a body scan, because I think people get more frustrated and the limiting beliefs can get so loud when you get the same messages from that same cousin or the brothers, like I said. It's like they keep reinforcing some of those limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
And one of the things when I start to work with people, I'll say, stop talking to your friends about work, or stop talking to the thing that we're about to work on. Just like for a month, talk about TV or a movie or something else, or cooking. Give yourself a break from asking for advice. You need to get clear first so you can show up. And so, like, I think the cards sometimes put that boundary. And even if you're out and you're talking about work, like this project, this creative risk you're taking, you're like, I have in the back of my head that card. I know it's my anchor that this is going to work out. That village, that empire is going to come.
When I first got acquainted with this card was when I was building my startup. So the version of me then was like, oh yeah, this startup, it's hard, but it's going to be worth it, baby. It's going to pay off. And then when it all came crumbling down, I was like, oh, blood, sweat, and tears. I understand. I fully understand. And it was deeply humbling. And it took me a long time to reconcile that the empire, this future empire that I'm working towards, is not the one I thought I was building. But had I not gone through that component, it informed the next chapter. But that's also the part where the cards have bigger visibility than you do into your higher self knows more than you currently know. And so it's always like that zoom out is helpful because there's greater wisdom there that's beyond your current sight line.
Absolutely. And that's why looking back on your past self or the experience with love and admiration, but also not being attached to it and letting it go and saying, I'm here right now with the wisdom I have, like you're talking about from all these experience. Could I go back? I always joke, could I go back and do middle school? No. Could I go back and do high school? No. Could I go back and do my old job? Like I do not have the energy for that. But I need that experience, that post-merger integration that helps me with behavioral psychology, that helps me with how I show up to meetings, how I negotiate, how I read a room. Like I got a case study in that. I got an MBA in people dynamics that I'm now using in my practices today, or how I'm fascinated by the wealth transfer to women in 2030 and what that's going to mean for the female energy of the planet and what that means for me to research and lead and do workshops on that. What does it mean to be in abundance and what's your money story? But I couldn't talk with such certainty unless I'd lived in that space. And talking about finances is ugly, and talking about life insurance is scary. Who wants to talk about dying? But I did it already, so I can do it again and I can make it more friendly. We have to have those lived experiences to have the confidence we have now, to have the expertise. And
Well, I
maybe
also look
you're,
at them as like puzzle pieces.
yeah,
Had you not had deep experience in banking and understanding money and financial literacy, it's a tool, it's a piece of the picture you're building now. And so much of that's what I look at is, instead of being so attached to that, this job being, this has to be my holy grail and my success, what if we look at it all as like information, data collection? There's going to be a greater masterpiece that's going to be built. And my job right now is just to soak up the information and trust that the pieces will come together.
100, like absolutely. And instead of people saying, oh, I got this role or I have this project and they tell me what it is, for example, I'll say, what are you learning? Or what's the skill you're leaning on the most right now in this role, in this thing you're building? Because that's ultimately, and to your point, that's what we need. It's that one puzzle piece. Like maybe you need to pull that one lever harder to get to the next thing, to get to that next level. And I think it can be fun. I want
It
to
can be
just,
so
it can be
fun.
so fun and have so much joy. And that's what coming into this podcast, I'm like, I just want this to be such a fun, meaningful conversation. And it can be both. It can be light and good. And sometimes we take ourselves and our limiting beliefs way too seriously. You just be like, let's have more fun with this.
As you know, I was just in Europe and I went to Paris for the weekend. It was this guy on my plane I was talking to. He was like, so why'd you go to Paris? And I was like, for joy. And he was like, whoa, crazy. And I was like, yeah, just for joy. And very, very Pisces North Node of me with very little plans. That's so unlike me.
Yeah,
Very little plans.
The Virgo was not invited.
I was just committed to a wander. I haven't had a couple days to have a wander in a city in a really long time. And I find
Mm,
when I've done that in the past, that's how the beginning seedlings of my book started, was on a wander in Barcelona, and just giving myself the brain space to be bored and to just wander and be inspired by architecture and walking around and have nothing going on. And I found so much meaning exactly in this, which was, I wasn't there to do anything. I wasn't there for any purpose, but people I connected with planted a lot of seeds of meaning. There was one particular coffee I had that really validated the path that I'm on. And had I not given myself the 48-hour space to not have a plan, I wouldn't have had such a meaningful experience.
and you didn't take a week. This is such an important point. You didn't take a week. You didn't take a month. You didn't have a walkabout for a year. You had 48 hours that you let your brain and your body and your energy and your heart. You were grounded in a new place. You were taking in the energy of all that's in Paris. It's so amazing. And to anyone listening who is like, I need a sabbatical, give yourself the weekend. Give yourself 24 hours to reset and have an open calendar. You can do it. You can do it for
Yeah.
24 to 48 hours. That's the same space as the Oracle deck came through in 24 hours.
I think shaking up your surroundings, which you can do 5 minutes from your house, it doesn't mean going to another country, but shaking up your surroundings, do something you don't normally do. Because I think when we have new stimuli, we gain so much through like the tickling of the brain or new experiences.
When you're in a new space or you're taking a different path home or you're driving or walking or even going to a new coffee shop, you're forced to pay a little bit more attention. You're not on autopilot. Where is the barista? Where is the cashier? You have to pay attention. Oh, it's on the left, but usually at the one I go to, it's on the right. And so you have to pick your head up a lot more. and notice who's around, or maybe make eye contact with someone. Similarly, I was in the desert and I was with several friends, and they went on this really hard hike, which was too difficult for me at my stage post surgery. And so I went on this sort of walkabout up this neighborhood. I had no idea where I was, but followed the road, and two people on the road on a desert town. And this older woman was on a run, and she came and fist pumped me. And I was like, huh, I needed that today. I don't know. And I never saw her again on the walk. It was one street in and one street out, never saw her again. I'm like, you know what? I'll take that fist pump. I'm feeling good, and I'm going to keep feeling good. And it's those interactions where I'll remember that for a very, very long time. And I'm sure you'll remember that Parisian coffee.
Oh, forever. It was pretty life affirming. It just all that stuff where it's you give yourself the space, amazing things happen, and staying open and curious in that space. And I admittedly have had a very hard time with that idea my whole life. It's a very new space for me that I'm finding a lot of awe and joy and reveling in, but it has not come to me easy to be planless and freeform. It goes against everything I know of how I've survived.
Same. And I still love a schedule. I still love structure. Structure is one of my core values. I do. And it can be loose. It is looser now than it used to be. But the idea of having some parameters, like you knew you had 48 hours, so you weren't going to go crazy. If it was like 10 days, you might have been like, I need a plan. But having a few parameters, and then if what we're talking about is so overwhelming, find one friend to go with or one person, so it's not like a gaggle, and you can have some deeper conversations. Or you could go overnight with someone and then say, let's do breakfast or coffee apart, or let's take a walk, and give yourself that moment. Or someone who's in your world that's quote unquote safe. You don't have to go to a major event. But that's why all of my retreats were only 24 hours, for the same reason.
I don't like being alone for 10 days. I'm a very independent person, but I find the idea of being in a new city by myself very overwhelming. Even if I was just there to write, it can feel a bit much. So I like those 2 to 4 days by myself in between cities where I
Right.
have people and I have grounding, and I have some friends in Paris, so I wasn't completely out to sea. But it's important to trust that you can find your way for a couple days by yourself and go have that dinner at the bar by yourself and see who you talk to and see what experiences happen and
It's one of my
let it ride.
favorite things. One of my
You always
absolute
learn so much when you're having dinner at a bar by yourself.
So true. It's so true. And I think people are more open to talking to you, or you're just your head's up more. I don't know, but it is affirming. It is very, very affirming. When I was writing the Oracle deck, I was like, okay, I think I'm just going to go out to dinner. And I sat there and I was writing. I couldn't stop writing in my journal, free form. And the waiter said to me, so you're a writer? And I was like, huh, I'm thinking to myself, I've never thought of myself that way. I'm a banker. And so I turned to him and I said, yes, I am. I'm a writer. And I was like, oh, okay, there we go. And off to the races.
Good.
Like someone else
Yeah.
sees me like that. Well, damn it, I am. I can call myself whatever I want.
That's right. And so for people, where can they find this deck?
The deck is on lynnmull.com. It's under products. We'll link it in the show notes, but it's lynnmull.com/the 24 deck. And just know that whatever phase they're in is the right phase.
And you can also reach out to Lynn on her website for if you want to book some coaching or Reiki. I highly suggest. It's been a huge support for me in 2025. And where can we find you on social media?
I am on Instagram @_Lynn Mull, and Substack you can all find through links on Instagram or my website.
Thank you for taking the time today. This was just beautiful. It was beautiful to learn more about you, and I just really loved every minute of this.
Me too. And congratulations on the next season. I'm so excited to be here.
Too much, baby. Thank you so much for listening. If you do like listening, it would mean the world to us if you could subscribe or review the podcast anywhere that you watch or listen to the podcast. It really helps with the algorithm to share this with the world. I want to give a special thank you to young Spielberg, and Sarah Yarkin for their beautiful work on our opening jingle, Dana Boulos for her help with the beautiful art, and to all of you for tuning in and keeping this dream alive. If you want to hear certain topics or from certain guests, please feel free to email us. We really, really want to hear from you and see how we can best support you. See you next time.